Hi, my name is Amanda, and today I want to give you an overview of IELTS speaking so that you will be more familiar with the different parts of the test. As I have said in other videos, it's really important to know about the different parts of the speaking test so that you can get a high score. So let's look right into it. Now, the first thing is, when you walk in on the day of the test, the examiner is going to ask you for your ID, and they're going to confirm. They'll look at you and they'll look at your ID and just make sure that you are who you say you are. So, after that, the test will begin. Now, there are 3 parts to the test. Overall, the test is 11 to 14 minutes long. In part 1 of the speaking test, it takes about 4 to 5 minutes. And in this part of the test, the examiner will ask you about familiar topics. For example, they could be things like what you like and what you don't like, your city or the area that you live in, the music that you like, or the music that people in your country listen to, or people that you know, or it could be about famous people, any of these kind of familiar topics. Now, what you want to do is give brief answers that completely answer the question. You want to make sure that you have definitely answered the question that the examiner asked you, but you don't want to give a really long answer. Like, a really long answer would probably be about 10 sentences long. You do want to give an answer that's at least 3 sentences long, but you don't want to give an incredibly long answer. So make sure that you have that balance in your answer. Also, this part of the test is less formal, so it gives you an opportunity to use idioms so that you can increase your score in vocabulary. So try to use idioms in this part of the test. You also want to try to use idioms in all parts of the test, but generally here I see that you have more opportunities. So, if at any time during the test the examiner asks you anything or starts talking, just stop. Don't try to talk over the examiner. Just stop and listen to the examiner. The examiner might stop you, and in that case, they're just trying to control the time because they have a time limit for the test. Don't worry about that. If the examiner doesn't let you continue and the examiner moves on to the next question or the next part, just follow the examiner and don't worry about it. Now, the next part is part 2. This is about 3 to 4 minutes long. And in this part, you'll have 1 minute to read this card, or the examiner might give you a book with questions and a topic and different questions about that one topic. And as soon as you see that card or that book, you have exactly 1 minute to prepare. That is enough time to think about what your answer is going to be and take notes for the different questions. There are usually about 4 questions in this part. And the topics that you might get are things about your experience or your past, possessions, things that you own, things that you have, or a person that you know. It could be something like this. These are also kind of familiar topics. And so make sure that you practice this. Practice taking notes, because you only have 1 minute. Some people don't think that that is enough time, especially if it's a difficult topic for them. So you really want to make sure that you practice writing about new topics in 1 minute. Now, you don't want to write sentences. You don't have enough time for that. So just write some notes, just keywords of what you want to talk about. Next, after the time is up, you will have 1 to 2 minutes to give your answer. So only you will be talking, and the examiner will only listen to you. So you want to try to speak for about, I think a really good time is 1 minute and 45 seconds. I wouldn't only speak for 1 minute because then you could lose points in fluency. It's not really enough. So you want to speak about all of the points on the card and try to follow the order of the card. And you can use your notes, but make sure that you're not just looking at your notes and talking like this. Make sure that you're still looking at the examiner and you can look down at your notes while you're talking to get ideas. And you want to give a really strong introduction and a strong conclusion. Actually, you want to maintain high energy through the whole presentation that you give, or the mini talk that you give. You want to make sure that you have a lot of energy and you don't start slowing down at this point, because I see a lot of people, they start to kind of slow down or they lose fluency in this part. Don't try to rush yourself. Make sure that you're still controlled, but don't start losing energy and going down. Don't lose energy here. Have a really strong introduction. I would like to tell you about the topic, and have a really strong conclusion, like, I think that's all I can tell you about the topic. Something like that. And don't fizzle out. What I mean is, don't be like a dying fire. Like, don't have your presentation and you're talking and you're giving your answer and then all of a sudden. Don't fizzle out like that. Make sure that you have a very strong conclusion and it is very clear that you are finished. Use your intonation to show that you are finished with your presentation. Now, after that, the examiner will ask you 1 or 2 follow-up questions. If you don't speak for the full minute, then the examiner might help you by asking you more questions and by asking you to say more about the topic. So you don't want that to happen. But getting back to this, you have the examiner will give you 1 or 2 follow-up questions. The examiner will ask you these questions, and this will be the transition into part 3. Part 3 is, for a lot of people, the hardest part of the test. Some people think that part 2 is the hardest part because timing is so important. Others believe that part 3 is the most difficult because the topics are not very familiar for most people. The topics are about abstract or academic topics, things that you might talk about in a meeting or in a university classroom. So, this is the more formal part of the test, and you want to use as many uncommon words as possible. Uncommon vocabulary words are words that you would read in textbooks, for example. Now, before I continue talking about part 3, there's just one thing I want to mention about part 2, and that's you should practice timing. When you're practicing, make sure that you give yourself 1 minute to take notes, and then immediately after that, give yourself a minimum of 1 minute and a maximum of 2 minutes to speak. You should not try to speak more than 2 minutes, because if you do, the examiner will stop you. You want to make sure that you have answered all of the questions on the card before the 2 minutes have finished. Now, getting back to part 3 about the abstract and academic topics, this the topic will still be related to what you talked about in part 2. It will relate, and in this part, you want to give long, coherent answers. Make sure that you're very organized in how you answer each and every question. So, you want to make sure that you have an answer, like an introduction, and then you give the answer again in the end as a conclusion, in a way. It's kind of the same way that you should be structuring your paragraphs, your body paragraphs in writing task 2. So, make sure that you're familiar with these different parts of the test. I would even check out YouTube videos and other videos online of the real test so you can see what it's like. And I hope that this was helpful for you, and thank you so much for watching my video. I hope that you get a really good score on the IELTS test, and for more videos on learning English and about the IELTS test, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you!